All right, everybody, welcome to episode 76 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I am your host and co-founder, Aaron Breitman, back for the third week of daily podcasts. And what a second week it was, just in terms of the news cycle. Obviously, with Friday, Cam Spencer unexpectedly leaving Rutgers men's basketball. I was one of the first to report that was the case on Friday morning. I posted a rapid reaction to it and wanted this episode on Monday, May 22nd, just to touch on that a little bit, as well as where things are. I guess the approach that Steve Pikiell now, the focus on him in terms of how he responds to this, both in the short term and the long term. First, I wanted to say the reactions, conspiracy theories. Well, the reactions, obviously some normal ones in terms of massive disappointment. Fans recognize what a big loss this is for the team. Also, some reasonable reactions in terms of which I have also reiterated that Cam, has the right to earn whatever income from name, image, and likeness that he can. I wouldn't fault. I said, don't hate the player, hate the game, and talked about the system on Friday a little bit and the flaws within it, within the NCAA, and how for years and years and years, NCAA, universities, everyone's profited massively, and now student athletes. I do think there's a misconception that, a Cam Spencer type situation is normal. It's still not normal. There's still, and if we're talking about all student athletes, there's still so many that don't make much from NIL at all. So the whole, argument that people make, oh, they shouldn't be on scholarship anymore, they make NIL. It's not a like for like scenario for every sport. The cream of the cream, or I don't know if I said that right, but the top of the list in terms of the best players, especially in football and baseball, even some women's basketball, wrestling, they're making, significant NIL. But most, I don't know what the percentage would be, but it can't be much. I don't want to throw a percentage out there, but it's a strong minority that are making serious money in NIL. Most of the student athletes across the board are not. So it's a terrible argument. That was one take that I did not like. But in terms of Cam specifically, there was I saw by a lot of people talking about, it was probably because of the roster, bringing in Noah Fernandez and people even cited the 24 recruiting class, which makes no sense because Cam has 1 year left. The class won't even be on campus until he's already or would have been gone after 1 year. But this is the bottom line. First of all, good to great players never fear competition. So no good player, especially someone that's already been a starter, already was tied for the highest scoring average on the team last year, they're not going to worry about losing their job. Secondly, it was very clear that Pikiell and Rutgers, the coaching staff, was building around Cam Spencer. The way they added Fernandez, a creator, which I touched on Friday. You bring in Gavin Griffiths, another shooter. So now Cam is harder for opponents to focus on. That's a good thing for Cam. So to say that the way the roster was being constructed, Cam probably didn't like that and left. First of all, it doesn't make sense. But the last point I wanted to make is that I can, as I've reported from the beginning, and if you read my article on Friday, my rapid reaction, I was very clear that NIL wasn't a motivating factor. It was the motivating factor in this decision. It was a financial related decision. Now, I don't know where he's going to end up. Now there's all kinds of reports about bidding wars breaking out. Who knows what happens? But the bottom line is it was a financial decision, and that decision is his reason for leaving Rutgers. So I can't speak to the details. I can't speak, counter offers, things like that was not a lot. I know Geo Baker tweeted this weekend that he didn't even give Rutgers an opportunity. I don't know if that's true. I do know that there's a lot of misinformation out there in general. And there has been a lot this offseason on a lot of things. But in terms of the Cam situation, all I know is with confident certainty that he left for financial reasons. Now, where he ends up, what those numbers are being discussed, promised, will end up being, I don't know. but yes, tampering is an issue, and I harped on that a little bit on Friday as well. And that is definitely the case, and that's what's happening across the board. And Rutgers has been dealing with it all offseason. And I'm don't want to sound the alarm bells, but the fact that Rutgers only lost one player in the portal due to this type of tampering, I actually think you have to credit Steve Pikiell for that. I mean, that's actually a good thing. We know about the Moat Mag rumors. Uh, I don't think that was the only one. I think Rutgers has had dealt with tampering up and across down the roster. So I don't think it. It's what I'm hearing. So, and even Mike Broadbent, who was on my spaces with my partner Ant Wright on Friday, discussing everything. He said he's heard the same thing. So it's a system wide problem, and Rutgers is obviously dealing with it pretty significantly. And Spencer was the result of Friday in terms of leaving, and we'll see what happens. But conspiracy theories, thoughts that they're trying to find some other reason other than, hey, in life, a lot of decisions are made based on money. So why is it so hard to think that this isn't the case here, especially with NIL the way it is nowadays? I talked about, his value automatically going up after that transfer deadline passed for undergrads to be eligible for next year. He's a grad transfer. He's eligible at any time. And within that week, all of a sudden he's in the transfer portal. So I don't think that that's a coincidence. His value skyrocketed as one of the few players available that could still enter the portal. 43% 3-point shooter from in the Big Ten. He's a hot commodity, and he's cashing in. And again, I'm not going to trash him for that. He has to do what's best for him and his family. The timing stinks. The timing's awful. And that kind of leads to my greater point about Steve Pikiell, just in terms of the position he's in now, right? So I wrote on Saturday just about his to-do list and how it keeps growing, and someone even wrote to me, that's his job. And yes, that's his job. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. But there are a lot of things on his plate right now. The assistant coaching hire, the staffing position, already needing to find a big in the portal. Now you have to find a guard in the portal. You're still waiting on Cliff and Paul. You have a lot. Player development is huge this offseason with so many key young players: Antonio Chol, Antoine Woolfolk, Derek Simpson. You have Jermichael Davis coming in, who, by the way, is going to have more opportunity now too. And who knows? But he's a super athletic, fast-paced point guard, more in the inkling of Simpson and Fernandez. So this breeds opportunity for everyone that's still on the roster, including Gavin Griffiths, who I touched on Friday. But he's going to have an opportunity to play more now. And I've said for a while, I think that competition on this team is really important. I know it sounds basic, but this ties to Pikiell's development, right? In terms of his kind of philosophy and his evolution as a coach, is that, and part of it wasn't even really, it was just a natural byproduct, right, of having 4 to 5 year guys like Geo Baker, Caleb McConnell, Ron Harper Jr., Miles Johnson was here for a long time. Guys that kind of had set roles in terms of, you knew they were going to be in that starting lineup. You knew they were going to play 30 plus minutes. When you have less certainty on the roster and there's less guarantees per se of who kind of the starting five is and all that, you create more competition. And that, in my opinion, is a very good thing. And you have a lot of newcomers that are going to be on this roster this year, and that is going to increase the competition. Even if Paul and Cliff do come back, yes, those are two rocks, those are two staples. But, Andre Hyatt, Fernandez, Gavin Griffiths, Derek Simpson, Wolf, all these guys are going to play. All these guys could potentially play big minutes, but everyone's going to be competing. And it's going to be a great thing. And then whatever other transfers come in, I think this is a real positive. And I think that Steve Pikiell's willingness, he's obviously set in his ways on a lot of things, but I do think he's proven that he can adapt and change as well. Just in terms of the roster. He was effective in the transfer portal before the transfer portal was really a thing. Remember when he out of nowhere he got Jacob Young, that came out of nowhere. He was. I went through the best transfers at Rutgers recently on a podcast. I mean, Akwazi Yeboah. He's got connections everywhere. And Cam Spencer was a tremendous find. Noah Fernandes. The fact that he got Noah Fernandes when he did this offseason makes the news of Cam Spencer. It's terrible. It stinks, right? But it's easier to process, and they're better on paper with him on the roster, and he's going to offer them a lot. And now he's going to have more opportunity. So Pikiell has proven, although we know he prefers high school players to develop throughout their careers on a team, he has maybe embraced the transfer portal is the wrong word, but he has been effective in landing transfers that fit the program and are contributors. And that is an adjustment that he's made. And there's no reason to believe that he's not going to do that again. And he's going to have 2 open spots, potentially more if Cliff and Paul don't return. Obviously, if Cliff leaves, that's a huge void. Paul's even more important. I wrote about that this weekend as well. So we'll see what happens. But there should be total confidence in him and the coaching staff, Brandon Knight, TJ Thompson, whoever that third assistant is. But TJ Thompson, Brandon Knight, Pikiell have proven they know how to recruit. They know how to find guys out of the portal. Look at how he's been recruiting lately. I wrote soon after the season, this whole 65 speed limit thing, has to, because they didn't beat one high major when they allowed more than 65 points in a game last year. Look at how he's recruiting. He's recruiting more offensive-minded players. Gavin Griffiths is an offensive-first guy. Not that he can't play good defense, not that he won't evolve into a very good defensive player, but he is an elite shooter. Cam Spencer was, although a good defender, an elite shooter. Noah Fernandes can defend. I think he's going to be better than people expect, but he's an offensive-first player. Look at the 2024 class. Ace Bailey. He's a two-way player, but incredibly skilled on the offensive end. Delquan Warren is kind of a defensive-first point guard, but he's shooting 58% from 2-point range in the EYBL. Lathan Somerville is a really skilled offensive big in the class of 2024. Dylan Harper, if Rutgers is able to land him, I mean, he is a tremendous talent. Obviously can defend and will defend. And I think that it's not that Pikiell's going to let that identity go by the wayside, but he is evolving in the sense of he understands that he needs offense. And he's getting really skilled offensive players that I think he believes will be able to adapt and buy into his defensive philosophies and the team's and the program's defensive identity. So he is showing us that and he came to Rutgers and he built Rutgers up from the ground up in ways that nobody thought was possible. Not just that he turned Rutgers into a winner. He did it without landing big fish. He developed players, and people never really thought that that was possible to do at Rutgers. If you're going to win, I'm sure this has been said out loud, or maybe I shouldn't say it out loud, but I'm sure people thought the only way Rutgers would ever get good is if they started just, landing top recruits, probably paying recruits right before even NIL and getting them there. And that's the only way they were going to win. And he obviously did it the right way. He developed players and he believed in players. They believed in him and he made Rutgers into a winner, doing it his own way. And he's proven time and time again. Yes, the end of last season did not end well, but the Mawot Mag injury obviously was a problem. Did he adapt or change kind of the way the team was playing soon enough? I think you could fairly say in hindsight, probably not. Would it have worked long term if they switched earlier on, if Derek Simpson played a more prominent role earlier? Maybe. Maybe they would have made the tournament. If they just beat Minnesota, they probably make the tournament, having to do with nothing else. So my point is, through all the last few days, how crazy it's been. I know there's long-term NIL concerns. That's a complicated conversation, which I will have soon, but really not ready to have it yet because there is a lot of unknowns and I don't want to just speculate. I know there's a lot of speculation out there in terms of how much money Rutgers has, collectives. I do think that the program, although they lost out on Cam Spencer here, is in better shape than people think. But I think it's complicated. And I think the whole NIL situation is complicated. So that's for another day. But for today, my point is believe in Steve Pikiell. He's going to figure this out. I think Rutgers is still going to be a winning program. I think there's still going to be a winning program this year. I'm excited to see who's going to get in the portal. I'm excited to see how he kind of reinvents things a little bit in the offseason when he has proper time to do it. They have the trip overseas. He's going to have time to work with develop the roster, develop his rotations, test them out overseas. I think it's all kind of a blessing. And I like the idea of listen, maybe they might be a much more up-tempo team next year. They very well could be with Fernandez. Gavin can run. Jermichael Davis can run. Who else he gets in the portal? This might be a more up-tempo style than we're used to, a more up-tempo offensive style with a team that's still going to be bought in defensively. That excites me. So let's see what happens. A lot of time left. These next 4 to 6 weeks are crucial, but I'm excited about it because I believe in Steve Pikiell, and I hope that most fans, I know not all fans, so I won't ask for a miracle, but I think you should too. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.